Hi there, I am Jen Lormond, exercise physiologist, mom of 3, and co-owner of Tinkler.
I'm Christina Walsh, physical therapist, mom of 2, and co-owner of Tighten Your Tinkler.
And today we just wanted to keep it kind of a real talk. We're talking about lessons that we've learned from quarantining through this coronavirus. And we wanted to just start with kind of talking about, Chris, what are some of the lessons that you guys have learned in your household throughout this situation?
You know, I think for us it's been, I could speak for me, that I've always thought that I've heard all the women say, lower your standards once you become a mom about cleanliness and chores and upkeep and task accomplishment. And this experience has really driven home how important that is, and that actually when we've lowered our standards of what we can accomplish in a day with a 4 and a 2-year-old at home all day, every day, that everybody's happier. I mean, if I wasn't able to finally learn that lesson now, it wasn't going to happen. I think that's been a big one.
I would agree with that. You know, I have 2 teenagers and a 6-year-old, and you know, I've learned all of your kids have different levels of adaptability with how they learn. And, you know, I have one of my teenagers that has adapted to online schooling really well, and another one that has really, really struggled. It is not, has not come easy to him and has really been hard. The school has been fantastic working with them, but it's just required more attention from us and staying on top of him. And then I've learned how to be a school teacher to my kindergartner and completing those lessons with him every day. And that's been really fun and really challenging because it's time out of my day. So I don't know what the lesson learned there is, other than, I guess for me, I feel like I have been doing more, and for me it's kind of motivated me to recognize that I can do more in a day when I really take care of myself with some block scheduling, and I guess we did that at the studio as well. But in terms of home life, that's kind of where I am with kids.
You know, it's so funny the way you say that about block scheduling and accomplishing things. And I would say, you know, in a way it's the exact opposite with the 4 and a 2-year-old, where if I think I'm going to accomplish something at a certain time, or it's going to go a certain way, everybody ends up disappointed. And it's more about focusing on the now and meeting the basic need that arises in the moment. And if you can relinquish your idea of what the day was going to look like and go with those, meeting the little basic needs as they arise, then that's when everybody really is happier. And you know, I think
that leads perfectly into
the other part of the story that is really interesting and has been a huge learning opportunity for, I think, both of us, has been that Jen and I, we were thrust into a long distance marriage, work marriage for the first time. And it was a big struggle for us.
Due to what we just talked about, you know?
Yeah.
And the different stages of life that we are in, and our different personalities.
And our different personalities, we talk about this all the time, are what makes us work so well together. As with any good marriage, right? You know, we worked together in a less formal capacity for many years, and that was our dating. And then we formed Tighten Your Tinkler together, and now we're married. And less than a year into that, now we are in a long distance marriage. And because we are so different, we respond to stress and times of crisis very differently. And my instinct is to focus, to turn inward, and to step back and to reassess from a place of trying to just take care of my family and focus on that. But that was not Jen's response. That wasn't your response. And there's no right or wrong way.
No.
But it was very different, and it was really difficult for us to get back on the same page. It took a while. We're here.
Yes.
I'm so grateful we've got to come out on the other side, but I'll let you talk about your natural response.
Yeah, I mean, I think it stems from, through forming this partnership, as you alluded to, one of the beautiful things is we learned that I am a visionary, Christina is an integrator. And so we come at things, I am a big vision person, and Christina thrives more in the small details. And so our perspective on things is very different and they complement each other very well. But in times of stress, I'm thinking about the really big picture about how the online market has grown exponentially and how, much harder it's going to be to get our voices heard and our message out there. And so we got to do more. We got to do more right now, and I'm just like, ah. And Christina's like, okay, let's hold the phone. We just have to think about this and be strategic. I'm like, no, there's no time for that. We got to move, And so that's something that, while we knew one another in that we were in those roles, the way that I responded to this and the way she responded, I'm going like, hello, we need to, like, let's go. And Christina's like, you're crazy. Like, you need to slow your roll, girl.
It so reminded me of times of a massive growth in my marriage
Yes.
and my family marriage, because the time that was hardest for Thomas and I, and that we grew so much, but it was by the hardest, was a time in our lives where we had bought a house that was old and falling apart, throwing punches of cost and time that I could have never foreseen in the first year. We just had our first child, and my mom was dying of a 15-year disease. And we went so far apart to different pages, and lots of therapy and lots of talking later. We're good. And we're devoted to each other. But it reminded me of that, because Thomas and I learned a lot about each other that we couldn't possibly have learned any other way. It couldn't have been less painful to learn those things. And I think that's what we went through in our own way. And I'm proud and happy to say we're here on the other side of it. And we've learned a lot about each other.
Well, and there's no way to get to the other side of things without going through those hardships. That's what really builds character, and it really bonds relationships, and I think that's true for any relationship. And obviously I've experienced the same thing in my marriage. But the other side benefit to this in terms of relationships is I have two teenagers who aren't very forthcoming and wanting to talk, and this hardship has created the time and the space to have some hard conversations with them as well and strengthen those bonds. So, we know and recognize that a lot of you out there are having a harder time than we are. If you're on the front lines as a healthcare professional, or have lost your job and you have an enormous amount on your shoulders and trying to figure out what the other side of this looks like, we have great empathy. Our hearts go out to you, prayers go out to you, and we just got today.
We also understand, because our own private practices may not ever look the same again. We can't be sure that that is how we support our families too right now. So we have a lot of personal empathy for that if you find yourself in that place. And please let us know what are some big lessons that you've learned from this, or some coping strategies that have worked for you. Or what do you feel like you've learned, or how are you going to come out stronger and still thriving in your own way, or in a different way on the other end, whatever that looks like?
Yeah, we'd love to hear about any new skills that you picked up that you didn't recognize. I know in my house, I became a baker. We have baked French bread and cinnamon rolls and all kinds of different new things that I would have not taken on the challenge of previously. So if you have any coping mechanisms like baking that you've taken on, or sewing masks, or any of those things, we'd love to hear your coping strategies and kind of just where you are, your state, in the comments below.
Yep, and we'll still be here. We can't wait to come back next week with some really tantalizing bits of the story of what we are doing behind the scenes here to get you feeling better in your body. We're getting back to that next week with some awesome information coming your way.
Yep. So until then, take care of yourselves. We'll see you next week.